I was stunned. Wait, so you're asking me to stay here and house it? Yeah, he replied casually. My mom and sister want some family time. I couldn't believe it. I just stood there in shock, thinking, does this marriage even have a future? Let me backtrack a bit. My name is Sarah, and I'm 32 years old. I met my husband, Mike, through a group date organized by a friend. I've always thought of myself as a plain, introverted person, so I struggled to keep up with the outgoing people at the event. But Mike was different. He came up to me, started a conversation at my pace, and made me feel comfortable. I was touched by how thoughtful he was. We exchanged numbers, got closer, and started dating soon after. A year and a half later, Mike proposed to me. I was over the moon. At 30, I was starting to feel pressure about settling down. So I was so thankful he proposed without hesitation. I said yes and felt like the luckiest person alive. But there was something that didn't sit right with me, even from the start. The first time I met Mike's family was after we got engaged. His mother and sister lived in his childhood home, since his dad had passed away a few years earlier. His sister, who was about my age, had moved back in after her divorce. When I visited, they welcomed me with big smiles. His mom said warmly, "We've been waiting for this moment for so long. Come on in, don't be shy." Despite being nervous, I felt at ease. The house had a warm, friendly atmosphere. His mom even complimented me. "Sarah, your outfit is lovely. And you're working, right? Women thriving in society are so admirable." Her words made me happy, and I started to feel good about joining their family. But then, out of nowhere, Mike's sister asked, "Sarah, how much do you make a year?" I was caught off guard by the question. Mike's sister had just asked about my salary out of nowhere. I couldn't hide my confusion. "We're family now, so it's fine to ask, right?" she said, smiling. Mike jumped in. "Sarah works for a big company and earns a good salary. Actually, I recently changed jobs, and my income is lower now. Sarah's salary is probably about double mine." His sister chuckled. "Oh, how nice. It sounds like Mike is being supported by Sarah." Mike quickly added, "Wait a minute, my salary will increase soon, I think." His mom chimed in, "Sarah, you're an important part of our family now. We hope to have a long and happy relationship with you." I forced a smile and replied, "Yes, thank you. I look forward to it as well." Despite feeling uncomfortable, the meeting ended on a friendly note. I told myself my love for Mike was strong, and we moved forward with our wedding plans. At the time, I had no idea how much trouble this decision would bring later. We didn't have a wedding ceremony. I wasn't too interested, and Mike's income wasn't great. We decided to save the money for our future instead. We opened a joint savings account for things like our future children's education and retirement. But one day, after we got married, I found something shocking while reviewing our bank book. There was a withdrawal of $3,000. I had no memory of taking out that amount, so I confronted Mike immediately. "What's this? Why did you withdraw such a large amount without telling me?" He looked confused and struggled to respond. After a moment, he spoke hesitantly. "Do you remember me telling you about my sister's divorce and her moving back home?" I nodded, not understanding what it had to do with the money. He looked reluctant to continue but finally admitted, "The divorce happened because my sister had an affair. She's been ordered to pay alimony and still has a lot left to pay." I was stunned. "What?" Mike avoided my gaze, and frustration boiled inside me. How could he take our savings for this without even asking? I couldn't believe Mike hadn't told me this important detail before we got married. "So, how much does your sister still owe?" I asked. He hesitated, then finally said, "About $10,000. My sister only works part-time and earns very little, and my mom only has her pension. They can barely make ends meet. So I wanted to help." His voice trailed off. I sighed deeply. My emotions were all over the place: surprise, confusion, frustration about him taking money from our account without telling me, and a small part of me understanding his family's struggles. After thinking for a moment, I made up my mind. Let's agree to support your sister, but only with what we can afford each month. His eyes lit up. Are you sure? Thank you, Sarah. He kept thanking me, saying, this will really make my sister happy. We decided to send $450 a month to his sister and her family. It meant our savings would grow slower, but we told ourselves it was temporary. Once she paid off her alimony, we could focus on saving again. We felt like we were facing this challenge together, supporting each other's families. But then, during a visit to Mike's parents' house, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. A brand new designer bag sitting in the living room. If it had been an old bag, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, but this one was clearly new and expensive. Where did that bag come from? I asked. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law Francie, their faces instantly changed. Oh, this bag. A friend left it here, my sister-in-law stammered. Really? I said, raising an eyebrow. Their reactions made it clear my sister-in-law had bought the bag herself, and I was almost certain they had used the money we sent them to pay for it. Lisa, how much is left on your debt now? I asked. Well, I think it's still around $10,000, she mumbled. Didn't you say it was $10,000 last time too? I pressed. Her uneasy expression said it all, and frustration bubbled up inside me. My sister-in-law suddenly looked confused when I asked about the debt. It's been about 6 months, so you should have paid back around $2,700 by now. That means about $6,300 should be left, right? I said. Oh, yeah, something like that, she replied hesitantly. Her answer didn't feel truthful. I decided to ask directly, can you confirm that the money we're sending is actually being used to pay off the debt? What are you talking about? Of course, I'm using it to repay the debt, she said, but her brief look of panic told me otherwise. I couldn't shake off my doubts. Looking around the house, I noticed new furniture and appliances that hadn't been there before. My eyes landed on a toaster on the kitchen counter. Isn't this the latest model toaster? I asked. At that moment, my mother-in-law's expression completely changed. It wasn't just surprise, it was the look of someone caught off guard. Their reactions confirmed my suspicions. I took a deep breath, knowing I needed to be clear. If the money we're sending isn't going toward the debt, but instead is being used for personal luxuries, I have to ask you to stop, I said firmly. Both my sister-in-law and mother-in-law Francie, their silence saying more than words ever could. Suddenly, my husband, who had been quietly listening, stood up and shouted, "What is going on here? I can't believe this." His anger at discovering what his mother and sister had been doing was understandable. But then, to my shock, he turned that anger toward me. "Why are you making my mom and sister suffer so much, Sarah?" he yelled. What? I was stunned. "I just want my mom and sister to have better lives. What's wrong with that?" he continued. "If they want brand name products or the latest electronics, and it makes their lives richer, why does it matter?" I stood there, speechless, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Family is important, Sarah. We need to cherish them," he said, looking warmly at his mother and sister. "Mike," his mother said emotionally, "thank you so much." His sister added, "You're the best, Mike. Thank you." They were both crying tears of joy, hugging him as they reaffirmed their bond. But I couldn't be part of this farce anymore. I had been sending a large amount of money to support his family, but now I felt completely betrayed. I decided it was time to distance myself from the situation and possibly from him. I realized it was pointless to keep wasting time and energy, so I decided to reduce how much support we gave to my husband's family. At first, he wasn't happy, but I stood firm and didn't back down. Eventually, I limited contact with his family, which brought me much needed peace. A year went by, and our wedding anniversary was coming up. With my recent promotion at work and our finances looking better, I suggested, let's celebrate our anniversary in Hawaii this year. After months of calling and waiting for a cancellation, I finally managed to book a room at a highly sought-after resort. It was quiet, beautiful, and perfect for us to spend quality time together. The resort also served amazing meals made with fresh local ingredients. Everything about it promised a memorable celebration. As the trip drew closer, my husband suddenly made an unexpected suggestion. 1 month before we were supposed to leave. Hey, about the Hawaii trip, I was thinking we could give it as a present to my mom and sister, he said. Why would you do that? I asked, stunned. Well, when I told them about the trip, they got really upset. They said it's not fair that we're going on a fancy trip while they live a simple life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But this trip is to celebrate our anniversary. Why should we hand it over to them? Do you even realize how hard I worked to book the hotel? I've been looking forward to this for months. Seeing how determined I was, he backed down. Okay, he said, though he still sounded hesitant. But a few days later, he made another shocking announcement. Actually, I've decided to take my mom and sister to Hawaii instead. I want you to stay home, he said coldly. What? I was completely stunned. They said it'd be nice to relax as a family, and besides, they invited me too, he added, as if that made it okay. I was so disappointed in him that I couldn't even argue. I just said, all right, if that's what you want. He took my response as agreement and started talking excitedly. Oh, you're so understanding. That's why I love you. Don't worry, we'll have a big anniversary celebration once I'm back. Okay. But inside, I felt nothing but emptiness. The love and passion I once had for him were gone. After he left the room, I quietly called the hotel to change the reservation. Thankfully, they said it was possible to update the booking to include only his name. Though the cost would be slightly higher, I agreed and made the changes. On the day of the trip, he left the house with a smug look on his face. Well, I'm off. Look forward to the souvenirs, he said cheerfully. The moment he walked out the door, I took a deep breath. It was time to put my own plan into action. After my husband left for the trip, I quickly invited my family over to help me. Together, we packed up all of his belongings and sent them to his parents' house. At the same time, I gathered my own things and moved back to my parents' house. I was determined to start fresh and leave this chapter behind. Since the Hawaii trip was only planned for 1 night and 2 days, I knew my husband wouldn't realize what had happened until the next day. Sure enough, at 10 a.m., the following morning, I got a frantic call from him. Hello, wait, why hasn't the trip been paid for? He shouted. What do you mean? I replied calmly. I just changed the reservation. But the hotel says we need to pay $3,000 right now. We don't have that kind of money. His voice was shaking with panic. Oh, that's unfortunate, I said, unfazed. The hotel usually asks for payment after the stay. That's standard procedure. How can you be so calm? If we can't pay, we're in serious trouble. I answered coolly. If you don't have the money, then you'll just have to deal with it. What? That's such a cold thing to say. We're family, he said, sounding hurt. I don't consider you family anymore. That's the reality, I said firmly. What? What does that mean? He stammered, clearly in shock. It means it's over. We're getting a divorce, I said without hesitation. What? Why would you do this? His voice rose in disbelief. I've already canceled the rest of your trip. Your belongings have been sent to your parents' house, and I've included the divorce papers, I said matter-of-factly. Why are you doing this? He asked, sounding desperate. Because you ruined our anniversary, I replied, my voice steady but filled with determination. And I refuse to live in a future where all our hard-earned money is taken by your sister and mother. I can't accept that. This is the end. Our marriage is over. When my husband tried to speak again, saying, Hey, wait, I cut him off and ended the call without hesitation. Afterward, he called me repeatedly, but I didn't answer a single time. Not long after, I received a surprising call from the police. They informed me that my husband, his mother, and his sister had been arrested. When asked, I explained that I was already in the process of divorcing him and living separately. I made it clear that I wanted no further involvement with him in this matter. Meanwhile, my husband scrambled to find the money needed for their release. He begged for help from friends and relatives, and after much effort, they managed to gather the funds. He was released, but the damage was done. The news of his arrest spread to his workplace, as well as his sisters, and both of them lost their jobs. With no income and mounting debt, my husband had to face divorce negotiations with me. I was financially stable and had the resources to afford legal help, but my husband was not in the same position. He had no choice but to agree to the divorce. Although he received some money through the division of our property, it was clear it wouldn't last him long. Jobless, with an arrest record, and burdened with debt, he had no choice but to move in with his mother and sister. Finding a new job would be an uphill battle for him. These were the consequences of his own actions. As for me, I've started over. I moved into a cozy new apartment for one, and I'm thoroughly enjoying my single life. Right now, my focus is on my career instead of romance. I'm dedicating myself fully to my work and building a bright future for myself.